Hardly anything is more intimidating to the typical small business person and the would-be entrepreneur than the legal aspect of business. We put it off, we avoid getting into it, and yet it can be our real downfall. Welcome to NxBizsuccess. Here to cut through all the complexity and the jargon, my special guest today, her name is Sherry Wortman. She's with McHenry, Hazard, Hansen, Roth, and Hupp. Welcome to NxBizsuccess.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure to have you. You know, Sherry, one of the first things that an entrepreneur goes through is how to structure his or her company. And it's a difficult question and tends to be a little bit complex. Is this one of the toughest things that entrepreneurs deal with, is how to structure their company? What's the big deal anyway?
It is sometimes difficult because it's one of the first steps a business takes, at least legally, is deciding what legal entity to form.
Right. And are the ramifications, I mean, is it easy to make the wrong decision? Do you have, I mean, does the tax implications or what responsibility? What's the basic point of taking special time to do the right structure for your new company?
The most important thing from a legal standpoint is the liability protection for the individual investors or owners of the company.
So it's really liability is the first consideration, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And taxes also play a role, correct?
From an accounting standpoint, taxes play a significant role as well, and that's why it's important for business owners to realize they need to talk to both their attorney and their accountant when determining what entity to form.
It's kind of a joint deal, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, what are the basic, just the fundamentals, what are the basic types of structures any small business can take? And just go ahead and enumerate them for us.
Okay. There's essentially a sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability company, or corporation. Those are the main types of entities.
Okay. And which one, I mean, if you took all the 20 million small businesses around the country that don't have any employees, they're really small ones, what are most of those people doing? Are they sole proprietors, most of them?
If they don't consult an attorney, a lot of times they're a sole proprietor, or if they're working with another owner, they are a partnership. Those are basically the default entities if you don't take official steps to form an entity.
You just kind of fall into one
Yes.
of those two deals.
Yes.
Now, if you go see an attorney like yourself, a small business expert, you're implying that you're not going to be a small or a sole proprietor. You're going to move probably and look closer at LLCs or corporations. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, most likely that's what you're going to do.
And fundamentally, what's the key advantage when you try to steer them towards those choices? Why are you doing that?
Well, it depends on the type of business and the number of owners, employees, those additional facts. However, the most important thing from a legal standpoint, again, is the liability protection offered by limited liability companies and corporations.
Okay, all right, great. Well, let's just take a quick look at each one of the options, shall we, real quickly?
Sure.
And maybe you can just highlight the strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
Let's start with sole proprietorships. That's a very common option. I happen to know many people that have that kind of a structure. What's good and what's bad about sole proprietorship?
Well, a sole proprietorship is essentially a one-owner business where they use their personal assets in their business. The good thing about it is it's simple. You really don't need to do anything to be a sole proprietor other than start a business.
Right. No special paperwork or anything.
That's correct.
Okay.
The disadvantage is you have no liability protection and you may not be taking advantage of all of the tax opportunities for savings that you could be.
Now, a lot of people I know get excited. They have a buddy they have a drink with after work or whatever, and they talk for years, and they say, let's go into business together. Let's form a partnership. What's good and bad about a partnership?
Again, a partnership is the default entity for anybody who has a business and there's two or more individuals in the business.
Sure.
And so it's simple. They
Yeah.
don't really have to do anything in order to have a partnership. A couple of disadvantages come with a partnership. The first disadvantage is no liability protection. The second disadvantage is you have two people working together who at the beginning think everything's great, but if they don't have a plan for what might happen in the event that they want to go their separate ways, then that creates a lot of problems and can be very expensive as well as emotionally taxing.
Yeah, it can get messy, can't it? Because people think that they own the asset or we share the asset and we have to buy each other out and we don't have enough money to do that. And
Right.
all kinds of issues. All right, so let's move on to LLC. Now, I know that's been popular, increasingly popular the last maybe 10 years or so. What's the story on LLCs?
LLC is the abbreviation for limited liability company.
Right.
And It is similar to a corporation in that you have a liability protection. It is also similar to a partnership or a sole proprietorship in the simplicity of its form and operation.
Oh,
And
so
that
kind of the
is-
best of both worlds.
Right, that's
Okay.
the attractive part of a limited
Why
liability
isn't
company.
everybody in an LLC? Why would anybody not be in an LLC environment?
Well, I think a lot of it's just a lot of people don't consult with an attorney and know what their options are.
Sure.
And then there are also some tax consequences that, depending on your circumstances and what your accountant recommends, a corporation may be better for you.
Okay. And let's talk about a corporation. You just brought that up, and there are different kinds of corporations, aren't there?
That's correct.
Just elaborate just for a second on that.
The corporation, or what we call the C corporation, is the general corporation.
Okay.
And
That's the basic kind.
that's the basic corporate, the basic corporate structure, and that is basically a separate legal entity that's completely separate from the owners, which is similar with an LLC. And then there's also an S corporation.
Yes.
And an S corporation is a lot of times formed with small businesses, so long as they comply with the IRS requirements to apply for and be considered an S corporation, but it takes some additional steps. But there are some significant tax advantages to small businesses to form an S corporation over a C corporation.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like the S corporation and the LLC, in our little brief synopsis here, emerge as favorites among small businesses. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can tell me how that comes across.
And that's very true. And as from a legal standpoint, or as an attorney, I want my clients generally to be protected from liability, and so that's going to put them in either a limited liability category for an LLC
Right.
or a corporation.
You know, Sherry Wortman, one of the things about getting a business started is you've got to get started on the right foot. If you don't get going and have a sense of momentum and structure and stability, you can spend years kind of backtracking and treading water. Don't you see that?
Yes.
Yes, I know you have a lot of small business clients. What would you suggest if you had 100 small business people here in the studio? What would be your suggestion to them insofar as legal in general is concerned? What would you tell those people to prevent some of the problems that I know you're very familiar with?
Well, I would tell them to visit with an attorney and determine what entity is best for them. And it's dependent upon the type of business, the number of owners, and the type of relationship that the owners have with the business, who does what in the business.
Right.
And to make sure that you have everything in writing at the beginning, it prevents a lot of problems and hard feelings in years to come, and it makes for a much smoother operation for your business. And to treat your business as a separate legal entity, and don't commingle your personal assets and your business assets. That's a key.
Yeah, and that's such an easy thing to do if you have a home office and the living room's just across the way,
That's
and the kids or the wife get money out of the company business checking account or whatever, and it starts to get kind of messy, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, Sherry Wortman with McHenry Hazard here in the Lincoln, Nebraska area, I appreciate you being so helpful. Many of us don't ever understand this stuff. We just kind of blindly move forward without the assistance of a professional like you. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having
We
me.
appreciate you having you here on NxBizsuccess. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. This will hopefully clarify some of the confusion that surrounds the legal aspect of your business. Get started on the right note. Pay attention to professionals like Sherry and watch a lot of NxBizsuccess. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Thanks for watching.